My name is Emma, and I'm 28 years old. I live a very quiet life in a small coastal town. Every morning, I wake up, make myself a cup of tea, and open the little bookstore I run. It's not a big shop, but it's mine. The smell of paper and ink feels like home to me. When no one comes in, I spend my hours reading, listening to the soft sound of the sea in the distance, and watching people walk past the windows. I don't have many friends here. My family lives in another city, and though I call my mom on weekends, I rarely see her. For a long time, I told myself I didn't need anyone else. Books were enough. They never left, they never lied, and they always waited for me to open them again. My life was small but safe. And then one rainy afternoon in late October, everything changed. It was the kind of day when the sky turns heavy and gray, when the streets shine with wet reflections of street lamps, and the whole town feels wrapped in silence. I sat behind the counter with a book in my hands, the rain tapping softly on the glass windows. There were no customers. It was too wet for most people to be out. That's when I noticed him. Across the street, under a flickering streetlight, stood a man. He wore a long black coat and held an old umbrella. He wasn't walking. He wasn't even pretending to browse. He was just standing there, looking straight at me. My chest tightened. My hands froze on the book. Something about him felt strange. Not dangerous, but familiar, like a memory I couldn't quite place. I blinked, and for a moment I thought maybe I was imagining it. But no, he was there, watching. And then, as a car passed in front of the shop, he was gone. Just gone, like he'd vanished into thin air. That night I couldn't sleep. His face haunted me. Who was he? Why was he there? Why did it feel like I'd seen him before, even though I knew I hadn't? The next day it rained again. At 3 o'clock, I glanced out the window, almost without thinking, and my heart skipped. He was there. The same man. The same black coat. The same silent stare. He didn't move closer. He didn't wave. He just stood. This went on for days. Every time the rain came, so did he. And every time I gathered the courage to step outside, to demand answers, something always stopped me. Either a customer came in, or the phone rang, or by the time I reached the door, he was gone. By the 5th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I would follow him. When I stepped out of the shop, the cold rain soaked into my hair and coat. He was there, watching. The moment I moved toward him, he turned. Calm at first, then faster. I walked quickly, then ran, splashing through puddles. My heart pounded. He turned into a narrow alley. I followed right behind, but when I reached the alley, it was empty. I froze. My breath came in short, shaky gasps. The walls of the alley were solid. There were no doors, no open windows, no way out. He couldn't have just disappeared. And yet he had. That night I dreamed of him. In a dream, I stood by the sea. Rain poured down, the waves crashed against the cliffs, and there he was standing in front of me. He smiled, soft and sad, and whispered my name, Emma. I woke with a start. My hands trembled. My heart raced. How could he know my name? The next morning, I went to the bookstore, but I was a mess. I dropped books. I gave customers the wrong change. I brewed tea so strong it was bitter. And all the while, my eyes kept drifting to the window. But for the first time in days, he wasn't there. And instead of relief, I felt something worse. Sadness. For a week, he didn't appear. The rain stopped, the sky cleared, and I went back to my quiet routines. But every step felt heavy. Every night I sat by the window, watching the street, waiting for him to return. And then on a Sunday night he did. The rain came back, soft at first, then heavier. I sat at my window, staring at the glistening pavement, when suddenly, there he was, standing under the streetlight, looking up at me. Without thinking, I grabbed my coat and ran outside. The rain was cold against my skin, my shoes splashing in puddles. He didn't move as I approached. He just watched, his eyes steady, his lips curved in a faint smile. When I reached him, I stopped, breathless. "Hello, Emma," he said. My blood ran cold. My heart stopped. It was the same voice I'd heard in my dream. "Who are you?" I whispered. His smile faded. His eyes deep, sad, knowing held mine. "I have waited for you," I swallowed hard, shaking my head. "Waited for me? I don't even know you." "Yes, you do." His voice was soft, steady. "You just don't remember." I felt dizzy, like the ground was shifting beneath me. "That's not possible." He reached into his coat and pulled something out. A small worn photograph. He handed it to me with trembling fingers. My own hands shook as I took it. When I looked down, my heart almost stopped. It was me. Not exactly as I am now. My hair was longer. My dress was old-fashioned, my smile softer, but it was undeniably me. And standing beside me was him. On the back, written in faded ink, was a date. 1923, I gasped. My breath caught in my throat. "This isn't real," I whispered. "It's a trick. A joke." He shook his head. "No, Emma, you don't remember." "But I do." My chest tightened. The rain blurred my vision. My body trembled. "I don't understand." He reached out and touched my hand. Despite the cold, his fingers were warm. "You will," he said softly. And then before I could speak, before I could breathe, he vanished. 1 second he was there, the next he wasn't. I stood frozen in the rain, staring at the empty space. My hand still tingled where he had touched me. The photograph was damp in my grasp, but clear as day. I wasn't alive in 1923, and yet? The woman in the photo was me. From that night forward, everything changed. My safe, quiet world no longer felt safe or quiet. The walls of my little bookstore seemed to close in around me. The streets I'd walked for years suddenly felt filled with shadows. Every corner held the possibility of seeing him again, or of not seeing him at all. I won't lie. Part of me wanted to burn the photograph, to forget I'd ever seen him. But I couldn't. Every night I held it in my hands. Every night I stared at my own face in that picture, standing beside him, smiling like I belonged to him. And slowly, memories began to surface. Not dreams. Not imagination. Memories. A garden near the sea. A stone bench under a willow tree. His hand holding mine as we read poetry aloud. His voice whispering my name. My laughter echoing against the cliffs. Emma. Wait for me. When these visions came, I would shake my head, whispering to myself that they weren't real. But deep inside I knew the truth. They were mine. They belonged to another life. A life I had lived before. I'll pause here. Because I need you to understand something. Love stories are supposed to be simple. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, sparks fly. But this wasn't like that. This was deeper. This was heavier. This felt like the kind of love that doesn't just live for one lifetime. It felt eternal. And it terrified me, because if it was real, if he and I had loved each other once, 100 years ago, what did it mean for us now? Was he even human? Was I losing my mind? Or was I about to find out that everything I thought I knew about life and love was wrong? I'll fast forward a little. Days turned to weeks. Sometimes he appeared. Sometimes he didn't. And every time he did, I felt my heart pulled tighter, like a thread being wound around us both. We almost met so many times. Once, I ran after him down a busy street, but just as I reached out, a crowd of people passed between us and he was gone. Another time, I thought I saw him sitting in the cafe across from the bookstore. I crossed the street, but when I pushed open the door, the chair was empty, still warm, but empty. It was like fate itself was playing with us, teasing, delaying, making me ache for the moment we would finally meet again. And when it finally happened, it was nothing short of magical. One evening, I followed the pull of the photograph to the sea cliffs. There, hidden behind overgrown hedges, I found the garden from my visions. The stone bench. The sea air. The setting sun. And him. Waiting. He said his name was Daniel. And when he touched my hand again, everything came back. Not just flashes this time, but full, heavy memories. Our love, our promises. Our tragedy. I remembered how we had loved in 1923, how a storm had taken him from me. How I had lived the rest of that life waiting, aching, hoping for one more chance. And now, somehow, impossibly here he was. Tears rolled down my face as I whispered, "It's you," and he smiled, that same soft, sad smile. "It's me." I asked him how it was possible. He only said, "Some love never ends. Some love finds its way back, no matter how much time passes." And in that moment, standing in the place where our story had ended a century ago, I realized this was our second chance, but it was short. Too short, because just as he had appeared, he began to fade. His touch grew lighter. His outline blurred. "No," I cried, grabbing his coat. "Please don't leave me again." He kissed my forehead, his lips warm even as his body dissolved into mist. "I will always find you," he whispered, and then he was gone. The garden was empty. The waves crashed below, and I was left alone with my tears, clutching the old photograph against my chest. The next morning, I woke in my bed. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a dream. But when I turned to my nightstand, the photograph was there, and something was different. On the back, beneath the date 1923, new words had appeared. Words written in a hand I knew as well as my own heartbeat. "I will always find you." And I believed him, because I know now love doesn't always live and die in the span of one life. Sometimes it lingers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it finds you again.